Okay, folks, here are my 2 cents in regards to Howard Stern, as we all know. So, the saga began last summer. Howard Stern takes a summer break. He's off for a couple months, and then he comes back. He's usually back by now. But now there's some drama behind the scenes regarding his future at SiriusXM. And word has it that Howard is, of course, somebody started a rumor. It was actually the U.S. Sun, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, of all people. And the rumor was that Howard did not sign a contract with SiriusXM and they're going to part ways. However, of course, a lot of hardcore Stern fans all said it's the same thing. People like Doc Ivan, the guy who does a lot of Photoshop images on, online. He has people like him have said the only person you can trust in this situation in regards to contract BS is Howard Stern himself. And so the story was he was supposed to be on the air on Monday. I was personally listening. My fingers were crossed. I'm kind of hoping that he will re-sign with Sirius XM. But he was off the air. They decided. So what happened was I listened for 2 hours of best of. They had they were talking about that girl that gave hand jobs to in high school when Ronnie was in high school, and of course George Takei and all that good stuff. So some people are like, So anyway, the NBC Nightly News talked about it. They didn't say why Howard was off the air. Which, and of course, some fans have said that there is some speculation that the real reason why Howard was actually off the air was because of a quote-unquote family tragedy. Ongoing family tragedy. Now, they didn't say what it was. But what happened is that, Howard's mother is 97 years old. And she is probably going to be on her deathbed pretty soon, unfortunately. Howard talks about her dying all the time. And, of course, his father, Ben Stern, died a few years ago. He made it to 99. And, of course, Howard made the announcement on, of all places, this art news, this art magazine that nobody reads. Howard is, by the way, is a great artist. You should, I can't believe how lifelike he is with his art. He's so good. So, anyway, all I can say is that some people are saying, Howard is just building excitement for what happened, what's going to happen on Monday. It's just because, Howard is usually off, back on the air the day after Labor Day anyway. So I don't know. But anyway, all I can say is, there's some things you got to think about. Yes, his numbers, SiriusXM's numbers are down. Subscription numbers are down. Howard, another thing too is that some people are upset that Howard was talking a lot about Trump. And Howard, Trump was a frequent guest on the show back in the day. Not anymore, obviously, because he became a Republican. And Howard in the past had supported both Democrats and Republicans. But, of course, one of the Republicans that he supported was Al D'Amato, the former senator from New York State. And Howard, he had Al D'Amato on the show. But, there was also a lot of Democrats who have kind of, crawled up Howard's skin, like Joe Lieberman, who wanted him off the air. So anyway, the rest of the story is Howard. So Howard basically was just one of those people who used to say that he was an American. He would, sometimes the Democrats sound better, sometimes the Republicans sound better. But, he even said on the show many years ago that Bernie Sanders was on his side in terms of his battles with the FCC. And Howard personally said that he loved Bernie for saying that, but he didn't like Bernie's politics. And gee, I wonder why. Oh yeah, it's because Howard Stern is worth $650 million and lives in 2 mansions, one in Palm Beach, Florida, and in the Hamptons. So maybe it's just that Howard just doesn't like giving his money away. I know, because once upon a time, he was only making $96 a week working in some shithole market in upstate New York. And look at him now. But nonetheless, also you have to remember too that Sirius XM is majority owned by John Malone. And as I mentioned earlier, Malone was the guy behind TCI Cable back in the 80s. John used to threaten to pull MTV off his cable boxes all the time because he didn't like some of the heavy metal videos that they aired. Oh, they were satanic. Oh, yeah, he was basically one of those guys who subscribed to the satanic panic of the 80s. Yeah, rock and roll was evil. Rock and roll was bad and destroying the youth. Yeah. And now the sad truth is, he is the majority owner of Sirius XM. He owns most of their stock. He owns Live Nation Entertainment, which includes Ticketmaster, which has screwed over concert goers for generations. And of course, last but not least, we have, he is also a part owner of F1, the racing company. So all I can say is so anything can happen between now and Monday. And all I can say is, bear in mind too, Howard is 71. And even if he still remains somewhat active like David Letterman, I hope he's still in the public spotlight somehow. I hope he doesn't fade away like Johnny Carson did. That's all I have to say about that subject for now. And, I hope his decision will be a good one. Even if that means we won't have him in the morning anymore. So, now we got to talk about the Epstein issue. Yesterday, there was a big press conference in Washington, D.C. that involved the survivors of the horrible Epstein situation. And some of these women have never spoken in public before about what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did. And it was for the most part incredibly heartbreaking. I shouldn't call them girls. They used to be girls, but they're now women. One woman said that this girl in her school came to her when she was like 14 and told her about a guy who was paying women, $200 just to give them a massage. And they were like, that would be cool. $200 just to give a massage, it would be a lot easier than working at Burger King or flipping burgers. So what happened was they went to Epstein's place, and Epstein then turned to this new girl. If I want you to go back to school, and next time you bring another girl, And if you don't, I'm going to sue you. And, you know, and what was going on was Epstein was molesting her. He molested other girls. And then there was another woman who stood up and talked about the fact that you know, she was from Brazil and she had to support her family, and she worked for Epstein, and Epstein was, you know, she stopped because of the immoral nature of what she was doing as a teenager. And Epstein, of course, once again made threats, and it just went on and on. These women now have to live with the pain of having to work for a monster like Epstein. And even worse is the fact that there were a lot of folks who supported Epstein, including some of the wealthiest people on earth, including some very beloved celebrities. And so this is what happened. One of the women who stood up said that she so the story is, she now hosts a podcast, and she even said that she and a bunch of other girls, a bunch of the other women, said if the government wouldn't produce an Epstein list, they would. And they don't care if many of these powerful people will sue them. These people need to be brought down for protecting a sexual predator. Meanwhile, guess who stood up yesterday in front of the Polish PM and said that this was all a Democrat? This was all a Democrat hoax. Guess who it was? Yep, Trump. Donald Trump said this was all a Democrat hoax. These girls had no room to talk, blah, 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 blah. Once again, he tried to sweep it under the carpet. And it's like, why are people interested in all this? It's because his name is all over the Epstein files. It's, dude, he's a sick fuck for being with this guy. Anyway, so Donald Trump ended up, so the story with Donald Trump is that, so all the Democrats have supported this initiative, this measure that would release every single bit of the Epstein files, even the pages that have been blocked off, because it's time to reveal who these people are, and because the girls can't, you know, these women, they can't do it. You know, I've mentioned this in the past, that once upon a time there was a major celebrity in England named Jimmy Savile. Jimmy was one of the very first hosts of Top of the Pops, the legendary music show in England. Top of the Pops, of course, was the show that helped to introduce to the world, you know, groups like the Beatles and Rolling Stones and Queen. And tragically, there's a lot of missing episodes of Top of the Pops, but some episodes have been rediscovered, mostly in like private vaults and home copies and stuff like that. But there's still like 500 missing episodes from the archive, because back then videotape was all erased. But the good news was some of those erased episodes had Jimmy on it. And so anyway, the story was, on the outside, Jimmy was a nice guy. He urged people to donate to charity, and he himself did charitable work. He volunteered in hospitals, and and so on and so on. And then what happened was, when he died in 2011, and he made it to 86, it was discovered that Jimmy was a sexual molester. He molested children as young as 5 years old. And he also molested older people as well. He was a sick mofo. He was disgusting. And for years, some of his accusers all said the same thing. Jimmy would tell them, if you went to the police, I was going to sue you for everything you had. And not only that, there was a girl who was 16 years old in 1977. It was all caught on tape. It was one of the, and the tape still survives, by the way, because it's all over the internet. Jimmy was in the middle of an audience of young women, young girls, young teenage girls. They were applauding the artist who was playing, and they all sat down, and the girl next to Jimmy, screamed. She went, "Ah!" It turns out that Jimmy's hand was up her skirt. And Jimmy would turn to the camera and said, "Any bloke like me could do anything he wants." I wonder who else said that. Oh yeah, Donald Trump. So, you see, folks. When Jimmy died, and he originally had a hero's burial, because after all, he was knighted by the Queen, and he was also he also kissed the Pope's hand. After he passed away, so many people lined up at the police stations in England. They all said the same thing. Jimmy was a monster, and he was a rapist. He was a molester. That one woman I was telling you about, well, she actually went to the producers of Top of the Pops and said that Jimmy, told them what Jimmy did, and their response was, "Oh, Jimmy was just having fun. It's just Jimmy. Don't worry about him." It's like, okay, so if Jimmy Savile was not a multimillionaire back in the 70s, if he was just a normal human being, this guy could have been in jail. But no, Jimmy was Mr. Good Guy because he was on TV, he was helping kids and helping people in hospitals, but this guy was a sick fuck. But thankfully, the British government stepped up, and they did an investigation on multiple ramblings they've heard about multiple celebrities that they've heard about for years. They actually kept a small file, and they called it Operation Yewtree, Yewtree, Yewtree. And the amount of celebrities who were busted as child sex offenders was astonishing. And, and most of the people on the list, by the way, were rock stars, unfortunately. Gary Glitter was the biggie. Gary Glitter, of course, was the guy who gave us Rock and Roll Part 2. That's basically, hey, over and over again. And, Jimmy, the story was he molested children as far back as the 1970s. And many of his victims were like only 14. And what had happened was in the night, he went on the shit list in the 90s because he was caught with child pornography on his computer. Yeah, one day he had a bug in his computer and took it to the repairman. Repairman did some file searches and found kiddie porn all over the place. And now he's in prison. Yeah. And the funny thing is, even though Gary Glitter is dead, Gary Glitter is a sex offender, now writing away in prison, radio stations still play this song. You go to, OSU still plays Rock and Roll Part 2 every time the fuck eyes score a touchdown. It's like, come on, people. I don't give a fuck. It's like, people need to know. Gary Glitter is a sick fuck, and I'm glad he's in jail. I hope he dies there. Rolf Harris. Tie Me Kangaroo Down, sport. Tie Me Kangaroo Down. He's a sex offender. He's in prison. Another guy that's on the list, another host of Top of the Pops, Dave Lee Travis was his name. And it's like the first time I heard that name, I'm like, is that guy a country singer? Actually, he's not. But anyway, it was discovered. Now, I guess he went off the... I guess he ended up off the hook. Although a lot of people will not work with him anymore, unfortunately. But, it is what it is. But, there were other people who were suspected, and they weren't busted. There was just not enough evidence. And of course, the list kind of went on and on. There was another guy named Ian Watkins. He was the lead singer of a band I really liked back in the 2000s called Lost Prophets. They had a couple of hits on the rock charts. Wake Up, Make a Move. Rooftops was another song that was a huge hit for them. And anyway, the story was he got busted for child pornography and raping young children. So now he's serving a 30-year jail sentence. And of course, obviously, Lost Prophets broke up because of this, and many radio stations will not play their music anymore. I haven't heard their music on Sirius XM in a long time, and for good reason. But the reality, folks, is the British government did a good job of busting sex offenders. Why can't America? But you think about all the stuff that other countries have, but we don't. You look at, look at England. They have free health care through the National Health Service. They, you look at all the what a lot of people have in other countries versus what we have here. And, the sad thing is you look at America, and the fact is so many sex offenders are being protected. And, of course, you look at what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. You look at Jeffrey Epstein. Look at what happened to him. And, the good news is, yes, because of what happened with Jimmy Savile and Operation Yewtree, there have been many American celebrities who have been busted and their careers ended because of allegations of sexual abuse. Bill Cosby was a biggie. He spent several years in jail. His career is long gone. And the sad thing is, yes, over in England, when Jimmy Savile was busted for what he did, when Jimmy Savile was busted, the BBC announced that they would never show anything having to do with Jimmy Savile anymore. But yet here in America, there's a television network called TV1 that shows The Cosby Show. And then, but, of course, another person that comes to mind, of course, is Harvey Weinstein. They call it the Weinstein effect. Harvey Weinstein raped raped dozens and dozens of women over the years. And many of them stepped forward and talked about their rape. And, and the sad truth is, you look at Harvey. He was a powerful man. He was a multimillionaire. He was an Oscar winner. He and his brother produced, hundreds of movies over the years. And Harvey's problem was the fact that when he was a boy, his own mother bullied him by calling him too fat. She would often invade his privacy if he needed privacy. She didn't care. She was upset that, she had a fat son. I mean, she actually told her son, Harvey, go outside and play. You're too fat. Yeah, she actually said that. And what was sad was that, the story was Harvey Weinstein's, so the story was their father, Harvey and Bob Weinstein's dad, Max Weinstein, who I heard was a really nice guy. He died when he was just 50 years old. He worked as a jewelry cutter. And then, he died of a massive heart attack. So what happened was the Weinsteins didn't want to see their mother suffer financially. So they hired her as a secretary. And of course their company grew over the years. It grew from being a concert promotion company to being, of course, the Miramax movie studio. And so many people who have worked with Miriam Weinstein have all said the same thing. She was a bitch. She was mean. Nobody liked her. And they felt bad for Harvey and Bob for having to work with her. Thing is, folks, is that sometimes the reason why we have sexual predators is because of shit that happened when they were young. Bullying. It's like the new Mudvayne song, hurt people. It's true. When you're hurt, especially when you're young, you grow up, you become powerful. Now you want to hurt others. It's true. And sometimes I have to wonder why Epstein became who he was. And, and even worse, why people are still protecting him. Why are they going after the victims and saying, don't you dare say a word? Folks, the truth will come out. And it needs to come out. If somebody goes to you and tells you, do not say shit about me ever again, and you have the receipts, keep going. But unfortunately, that's the problem. Some people don't have the receipts. They don't have proof that they've been attacked. And at the end of the day, they have no choice but to stay quiet. And, you look at what happened with Ginny Jeffrey. She committed suicide because she had nightmares all the time about what, she was a homeless girl from Florida. She was introduced, she worked at Mar-a-Lago, and of course at Mar-a-Lago, that's where Ghislaine Maxwell was at. Ghislaine taught her how to give blowjobs to people, and that's what happened. She ended up on Epstein Island giving guys hand jobs. She turned into a prostitute at when she was like 14, 15, 16 years old. Epstein loved him young, folks. And Donald Trump won't, calls it a Democratic hoax because his name's all over it, folks. He is protecting bad people because that's what Republicans do. Good people are good as bad and bad as good. And even worse, if you watched the thing yesterday, if you did watch the press conference, a plane flew over them like 3 times and they had to shut up. I wonder if Donald Trump sent that plane up there. I don't know. But another thing you got to think about too is the fact that 2 of the people who are supporting the Epstein initiative, 2 of the Republicans, guess who they are? Marjorie Taylor Greene and Laura Boebert. And Marjorie has even told the victims, give me a list of who did what, and I will be the one who will read it out to the public for you guys. I don't know, folks. You got to remember that Marjorie Taylor Greene was the nasty cunt who she spread QAnon theories for years. And of course, let's not forget that she made a personal attack. She personally attacked in person David Hogg, one of the survivors of the nasty Parkland shooting from many years ago. She is a cunt. And I'm scared that if the girls release a list of who did what with Epstein, she'll probably turn the list over to these people and they'll get sued big time. I don't know, folks. I don't know if I would trust Marjorie Taylor Greene with anything. Because she is a traitor, folks. And, it's sad that this Epstein list was supposed to be released. Trump said that it was a campaign promise. He never did. Because his name's all over it. And the only good thing I can tell you about Donald Trump is there's that rumor going around that he's riding away. His hands are, have that mold growing on it, whatever the fuck it is. And people are saying that he is developing heart troubles and, maybe dementia, for all we know. I mean, hell, he's almost 80. He's not the healthiest person on the planet. He's good buds with Ronald McDonald. And I know, and not only that, you gotta worry. We gotta keep worrying, folks. Look at what's going down in Florida with the vaccine mandates going on there. They're gonna get rid of them all. They're gonna tell parents you don't need to vaccine your kids. And they compared vaccines to slavery. What? Folks, science needs to win. Intelligence needs to win. Not stupidity. And this country is going in the wrong direction. And as long as we have foolish people running our government like Donald Trump, that's what we're going to get, folks. So, fingers crossed that these names will be released. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. This issue should not be politicized. The truth needs to be released. And heads need to roll. After all, Harvey Weinstein was a Democrat. And Ted Nugent is a Republican. And they're both, And the sad thing is Ted Nugent, he is a pedophile. But Harvey Weinstein's the one in prison. So, anyway, something to think about. It's not about politics, it's about power. Good day and good luck, everyone. I'm King Chuck. Have a good day, everyone.